Welcome, everyone. This is our 25th episode of the Spiky Signal Show, where I sit down with some of the most exceptional revenue leaders in the revenue space. The podcast is meant for all of us to explore the biggest problems facing customer-facing teams, share the real challenges of sales, what revenue leaders deal with on an everyday basis, whether it's pipeline visibility, coaching, deal velocity, sharing stories and strategies. We do it all here. I'm your host, Waleed Sharani, Head of Revenue over at Spiky.ai, and today I'm here with Lou Salfi, CRO at Stream, and today we're talking about why sales and marketing still don't speak the same language. Lou, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Excited to talk to you and your constituents.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Lou, why don't you just give us a quick elevator pitch on who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Stream. We're a company that provides in-app APIs for chat, feeds, and video. And we've got some of the most recognizable brands that you use every day, whether it's dating apps like Bumble or fitness apps like Strava or Peloton. We're usually like the Intel Inside, only for APIs for collaboration.
Awesome. So in today's kind of like discussion or episode, we're going to be talking about, like I said, sales and marketing and why they don't speak the same language a lot of the time, right? Do you, at Stream or like before Stream even, when have you really sat in, a sales and marketing meeting and alignment meeting and it was kind of less aligned? Where are you basically like seeing the gaps between kind of like the language that they're speaking?
Yeah, so I for years and years and years ran sales organizations, and usually as a part of sales organizations, at times I would have field marketing or I would have sales development. But I never really owned marketing until I got to Stream. And I had a lot of the same sort of opinions for years and years and years until I had to own it. And when I came to this company, the CEO said, I know you don't want to run marketing, but this is the job. So either you take it or you don't take it, but you're going to run marketing if you take it. So I agreed to take marketing, and it's super eye-opening for me. And was able to really see things from the lens of a marketer for the first time. I think the number one issue that you run into with sales and marketing misalignment is that a salesperson generally makes 50% of their compensation in variable compensation. So if they're going to, whatever they're going to get paid, half of it is betting on the come. So they're very coin operated, and marketers usually don't have a big portion of their comp, if any, in a variable nature. And so things you'll hear from marketers are like, hey, we're going to set the goals up really high, and if we reach for the stars and we land in the moon, well, then we landed on the moon. And then salespeople will look at them and be like, well, I don't think you understand. If I don't make my quota 2 quarters in a row, then I'm going to get fired. And if you don't make your MQL number, there's no penalty for you. So there's this feeling in sales of accountability, and then they look at marketing and they feel like, well, marketing doesn't feel my pressure and my pain. And then marketing sits on the other side of the table, and they know that any funnel that they build from top of the funnel before those signals are actually going to be meaningful, it's going to probably be 6 months by the time they're doing all the things that they do, whether it's performance marketing, click ads, getting somebody to the site, converting them to an MQL, nurturing them to the point that they're going to fill out a sales form and then they can engage sales. And so marketing is generally focused on very top of the funnel activities, and they're thinking about what assets and what ways they can generate interest and demand, when sales is all focused on, I got an opportunity, I have to convert that to close. And so the two functions are all trying to generate revenue at the end of the day, but they have very different drivers. And I can go on this topic for hours, but that's generally, I think, where it starts. So I'll pause there and see if you want me to dive into this deeper or go into another area.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So you mentioned it's more so around like the compensation piece, accountability with the sellers, and then the marketing aspect. I don't like to say that they're not accountable, but like they kind of have free range. Like they can't get fired if they don't hit numbers, right? But so do you think that introducing like a variable component to marketing is going to help that, or like what do you see typically that kind of like helps align everybody together?
Yeah, and I wasn't saying that marketing is not accountable. I'm saying if you're looking at the lens of a salesperson, they're looking at
Right.
it from they feel all this pressure and they don't think anybody else feels the same pressure they do. And so then they act out in many cases because they want people to understand what they're up against, so to speak. And marketing are generally the folks that I've always encountered in marketing are very academic. They're very analytical. Like people have this feeling that marketers are these really congenial, outgoing personalities. I found it to be the opposite. I find marketers generally to be very academic, very introverted, very analytical, and they like their quiet and their space, and they like to think about strategy and how they're going to drive outcomes. And that's very different from salespeople who are sort of those street savvy, how do I take the shortcuts to get where I'm going to go? And I don't have time. And marketing is like, yes, it takes time to build things properly. So marketing's playing the long game, and sales is playing what looks like the short game because they're trying to retire a quota right now. And those two things don't fit really well. And so what generally happens, in my opinion, is as I try and gain alignment between the two groups, I find that marketing really wants to help. And salespeople generally don't know how to give marketing the appropriate feedback for them to help. So a thing that a marketer will say to a salesperson is, I want to help you close more deals. How can I help? And then the salesperson's like, I don't know what you mean, right? But somebody has to translate the languages. If the marketer, let's just use a performance marketer as an example. If a performance marketer is judged based on ROAS, return on ad spend, they could be fundamentally anchoring towards, oh, I'm going to try and drive the most revenue for the money I spend in marketing. That's not always aligned to an enterprise rep and how they get their leads. Because an enterprise rep, it might take a long time to get a return on ad spend, but then you would get an enormous return on ad spend. So what generally happens is the marketer isn't really speaking to the enterprise account executive and asking them, hey, how can I help you get your deals from stage 1 to stage 2? How can I get more awareness for your opportunities? They're not looking at the different components in the interaction. They generally are talking above each other's day to day. So if you told a product marketer you wanted to get from stage 2 to stage 3 more effectively, that product marketer might say, well, could you use a case study? Would that help you? And what kind of case studies would you want? And they could interact on that. A performance marketer would want to know, what's your target account list? And if I was going to generate awareness for your target accounts and try and drive more of them to the site, which target accounts would you have me focus on? And can you give me a pretty steady list, because it's not a short game. I got to do this over time. And if you gave me your target account list, then what assets would be the most compelling should they come to an ad that I gave they click on? Is there an awesome case study? Is there some examples of industry related content that would really fit this portion of your target account list? Then a performance marketer can key in on how to help the enterprise rep convert those ops or get more to the site, and the product marketer can help convert those. So different functions in marketing have a different role to play in helping salespeople, and they generally, the two generally don't have a great way of saying, this is how I can help you, this is how you can help me, let's work together. I would challenge any of the salespeople listening to this call, how many of you have a weekly or a bi-weekly meeting with different people in marketing, whether it's your performance marketer, your product marketer, etc. How many of you are working and discussing, hey, what are the content, ads, and assets that are converting most on the website? Do you have my target account list? How are you warming up my accounts? I'm seeing tremendous success in this particular vertical, and sharing some of that feedback and talking about how we can run joint campaigns to go after these things. I think the amount of interaction and collaboration has to be grassroots between the sellers and the marketers, more so than waiting for this magical thing to happen at the top level.
Yeah, no, I agree with that totally. And especially like people with nowadays AI is everywhere, right? And I feel like they just want to push tools to fill in that gap sometimes. And sometimes that gap can't be filled in through a tool. You just need to have, that hardcore communication between the two teams so that they can make sure they're kind of aligned on what their priorities are. So I totally understand that. Do you think it comes down to start to hearing that from leadership, from a CRO or a CMO, to be able to have those two teams aligned, or does it start from the bottom?
I think, all right, so there's two areas that I try and create alignment. First of all, there's the full funnel. Does a salesperson understand the website sessions to signups, to filling out the forms or the MQLs, to the sales accepted leads and what the definitions are for that, to a sales qualified lead, to an opportunity, to a close, and the percentages that happen to all those things? Do they understand that? Because that's super critical in getting everybody speaking the same language, right? So that's the first thing. And then the second bit is I use my sales kickoffs with marketing, because my sales kickoffs are heavily collaborative between marketing and sales. And I lay out the journeys. Because, okay, imagine a world in which you were a marketer, a performance marketer, and you spend a bunch of money to get people to come to the site and take a meeting. And they eventually take a meeting. They fill out a form. It goes into HubSpot or whatever your marketing automation of choice is. And the client in that form typed in, hey, these are the things I'm really interested to talk about, and here's blah, 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 and so on. And there's a form. The sales development rep sets the meeting, and the salesperson shows up for the first meeting and says to the customer, how did you hear about, company X? And what are you interested in talking about today? And the marketer, if they could see that, would be like, oh my God. They put it in the form what they wanted to talk about. And you didn't curate a deck and show up prepared to talk about what the customer wanted to talk about after myself, all the money I spent, and the sales development person went out of their way to get this person to the call. You didn't take the time to actually read all that. And the salesperson was like, well, I don't even know where that information was. It's in a HubSpot form. Well, I'm not in HubSpot. How could I have possibly known? You didn't tell me, right? And so I walk through examples in my sales kickoffs where these things happen, because only when people see it, they're like, oh my God, I didn't even know we had that information before I got on that call. And so creating this alignment, and then say, well, now in my company, I have, the minute a HubSpot form gets filled out, all the key fields are pushed to Slack in an opportunity so that everybody can see all that information, so there's no excuses for how somebody could or could not have seen that top of the funnel information. Right? So accountability to get the person to the meeting, scheduling the meeting from the sales development rep, capturing the appropriate qualifying information, and making sure everybody along the way does their job to convert, and then managing conversion from MQL to SQL to opportunity to close. And everybody has to have percentage of conversion as a metric that's in their head that they feel is important. It's their accountability. So I try and drive a lot of that visibility, awareness, and measurement. And I try and get, marketers like to live in their own systems, right? They're either in HubSpot, they're in Google Ads, they're in they're in GA, whatever they're in, and salespeople are in Salesforce. And none of that data ever checks out if you tried to go measure, okay, what are you? Everybody's got a different attribution, and then you've got marketing saying, hey, I got that lead, and then outbound is saying, no, I set that lead, or inbound is arguing, and everybody's arguing when the reality is it's multi-point, multi-touch attribution, and everybody had a role to play, and we're all winning together, right? And so trying to focus people on attribution is a really tricky game, because you're just going to create more silos and separation. If you can figure out a world where you can win together and appreciate that everybody has a role to play, that's a big part in it too, I think.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree with that. And that's kind of what we've been working on here at Spiky, is that, and this, we've talked about this a couple of times, but basically there needs to be some sort of tool that glues everything together. I think when I think about revenue team as a whole, I don't just think about, a lot of people end up thinking about sales. Hey, the sales function is the one who drives that revenue, right? But it's not. It's marketing, it's sales, it's customer success, even product. Like they need to be in the loop of these conversations, because when customer success, for example, is talking to, a customer and they mention, hey, this feature is complete shit, or hey, this is not working correctly, they need to take that back to the product team, right? If there's that disconnect, there's not that glue, or a tool that kind of helps them take that information and aggregate it, so that way they can just simply pass it over, or the tool can actually show that in the product language for the product team, then there's going to be a complete disconnect. So that's what we're doing. What we're in the game of, is kind of unifying those conversational elements across the whole entire revenue team. So that way everybody is kind of in the know of what sales is doing, or how they're talking, who are they talking to. Same with customer success, product, and marketing. And so that way everybody's kind of, they're never going to be 100% aligned on how they talk about things, but at least they'll have some sort of notion of, are we kind of aligned on the same path of where we're trying to go to. So I completely understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny. I just had my forecasting meeting a couple hours ago. I have marketing in my weekly forecast meeting with the sales reps. And in addition to the sales reps having to go through their forecasts and their commits and everything else, marketing has to discuss their actual funnel top to bottom, and the trends and by region and the impacts and so on and so forth. So I've actually brought them into, and they forecast their MQLs and their actual ops and everything else just like sales does. And so I have them all in the same room together so they can see that they're all accountable. Like we said early on, marketing is accountable. They are super aware, and they are really, they're empathetic to the sales situation. But sometimes they just seem, they're so far siloed that we don't see that passion and emotion as sellers into how passionate and emotional marketing is about the job that they do. And I think bringing everybody together in that same forecasting meeting and having them explain, hey, if you're in a deal and the deal's not going, it's stuck or whatever else, and you have to explain that as a salesperson, well, if you're not hitting your MQL targets and the same plays that you've been making aren't working, you should have to explain that too and what you're going to do about it. Everybody has to explain what the circumstance is and what they're doing about it. And when everybody sees it, then there becomes this sort of like, oh, let me see if I can help you. Oh, I didn't know you were struggling with that. Maybe I can help you and give you some insight on what you... So then suddenly you get this feeling of teamwork and collaboration, because like you can all be in a boat rowing together and exerting equal amounts of energy, but if you're not synchronized in how you're rowing at the same exact time, all that energy is not efficient energy, and you're not pushing the boat further faster, right? Yeah. So how do you get the same energy exerted together as opposed to just energy exerted? And that's the thing I'm working on every day. Can we level up together? Can we row together? Can we synchronize? And together we'll win the race together, because you can't win it with hero ball.
Yeah. So I'm curious to get your take on this. I think meetings can go only so far. Like if you sync up every month or quarter or whatever it is, right? There's a huge mass amount of tools that have been popping up over the past couple of years for marketing and sales. And different companies are buying different ones, and they'll might have 20 different things in their tech stack for marketing and 20 different things on the sales side. Do you think it's also a tooling problem? Like, is there too many tools out there that are not communicating with each other specifically from the marketing and sales side of things?
Isn't it crazy how much money we spend on our tech stacks on GTM, and the most basic, you can't get the most basic information. It's actually insanity. And now there's this big wave of, we'll just vibe code everything. And that's not going to work either. And then you have these new tools that are coming out that do one thing good, but they don't do other things good. And so it feels like you have to buy one of 15 different things to solve the problem. It's actually mind-boggling. And so we'll continue to keep trying to find the right tools to do simple things like enrichment. Doesn't seem like it should be that hard, but for whatever reason, enrichment's really hard. Identifying target accounts seems like it should be really simple. Why is it so hard? That's an area that AI is really helping. But But you just top to bottom across the stack, I feel like there's tons of tools, and I do think it's getting better. But a lot of it is aspirational, or I think it's getting better. We're gonna find out. I don't have a good answer for you on the tool bit, because I just replaced half my stack because I'm just frustrated with the rigidity of the old world vendors, and I want to see if some of the new world vendors are going to provide a different level of flexibility to how I want to run the go-to-market.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of last question I have for you before you wrap up. So like we've been talking a lot, on the alignment between the two teams. Is there a particular metric or signal that you look for to understand that, hey, we're truly aligned here? Is it like just ARR? Like what exactly is? And I know ARR can be defined. That's like a super high signal. But like what do you see?
I really, ARR is ultimately the thing that we all care about in the end. But I'm looking at the pipeline, and I'm looking. I have my pipeline in my different segments, and I have my focus areas, etc. But really, I'm looking to see my pipeline. I know how my pipeline should be broken out between expansion opportunities, between enterprise new ARR, between mid-market new ARR, between self-serve new ARR. I know what those need to be, and I know how many MQLs, SALs, SQLs. I know the conversion percentages. And when those things are off at the top of the funnel to the middle of the funnel, I know that 6 months from now, I'm going to be paying the price. And so that's really, my instrumentation tries to tell me what's going to happen 6 months from now. And am I going to be okay 6 months from now? And that's as far out as I've been able to get it. I can't get it out 9 months. I can't get it out 12 months. I can get it out 6 months, maybe 9 months, with this instrumentation of, if I make my MQL and my conversion percentages are where they need to be, and my signups and all those things that I use from top to middle funnel, if those things are relatively in order, then I know that 6 months from now, I'm going to be relatively near making my quarter or exceeding it. And that's what I use.
Awesome. That's great to know. Cool. Well, yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for us here. I always ask this question before I kind of let my guest speakers go. For the next episode, who do you think would be a great revenue leader to bring on here?
Who would be a great revenue leader? Oh my God, that's a tough one for me to say right now.
If you don't have anyone in mind, you can always email me, but figured I'd ask.
I'll email you afterwards. I need to think that one through a bit.
No worries.
Thanks again for today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Lou.
All right, you bet. Bye.